What's up, NFL fans? Welcome back to another episode of Four Down Territory. I'm your host, Luke Easterling, joined as always by Doug Farrar, my good friend from Touchdown Wire. Doug, the conference title games are officially in the books. We now have our Super Bowl matchup. Another great weekend of playoff football. This postseason is the gift that keeps on giving. We'll start in the NFC. 49ers lose 20-17 to the Rams. Kyle Shanahan made a number of key strategic errors in this game that kept his team from a better chance at a game that was 17-7, right, in Shanahan's favor as the fourth quarter began. This isn't the first time we've seen Shanahan go rogue to his own detriment for the biggest, from the biggest stage of the game, right? And there was a Super Bowl, obviously, when he was the Falcons offensive coordinator, 28-3, right? We all know how that went. There were decisions that he'd obviously liked back from the Super Bowl against the Chiefs a couple years ago, right? And we all know he's a brilliant offensive mind, maybe the best in the game. But as a head coach, as a game manager and a leader on game day, is he in a situation where he really outsmarts himself more often than not?
Yeah, and in that game, I mean, he and Sean McVay were like Thelma and Louise going off the cliff in the car, like trying to duel each other in the wrong direction. On Sunday night, I wrote a whole article on the 5 decisions Shanahan made, mostly late in the game, that kept his team out of the Super Bowl. Remember, the 49ers were up, as you mentioned, 17-7 at the start of the fourth quarter. 2 delays of the game in the fourth quarter, one after Sean McVay's inexcusable challenge of the Kyle Juszczyk fumble, which, I mean, it was clear it wasn't a fumble. So you have extra time, then you have a delay of game. 3 punts in the game from Rams territory or the 50-yard line. And I get that you don't trust your quarterback, and you shouldn't, but come on. The refusal, the most astonishing thing to me, and this has been going on most of the year, the refusal to use Trey Lance as a runner. Lance didn't have a single rushing attempt in any of the 49ers' 3 games against the Rams, and that to me borders on malpractice, especially when you're struggling in this game to get any kind of run game going. You throw everything you can at the wall and you see what sticks. I didn't get that at all. The 3-pass drive in the fourth quarter took 17 game clock seconds off and gave the Rams great field position, losing over 30 clock seconds because he wouldn't call one of his 3 timeouts before the 2-minute warning. And the Rams had the ball. As an offensive coordinator, as a head coach, Shanahan has been outscored 53-0 in the fourth quarter of his last 3 postseason losses. Got that one from Dan Orlovsky on Twitter. Thanks, Dan. Including 2 Super Bowls, and it's time for the 49ers to get him somebody he'll listen to when it comes to game management. You know, the guys in Caesar's ear, he needs at least one, and he needs one now.
Yeah, I mean, definitely some confusing decisions, right? I always refer to this as the smartest guy in the room syndrome, right? You go back, it started for me when Lane Kiffin was the OC at Alabama, right? That first college football playoff when they played Ohio State, and he came out and wanted to sling the ball with Blake Sims instead of handing it to, what was the running back's name? Derrick Henry, I think was his name.
I heard he went on to some NFL stature.
Yeah, he's been pretty good, I feel. Somebody thought he was a fullback, right? But it turns out that's not the case. But seriously, it's that idea that, like, yes, you're a brilliant offensive mind, but it's almost like you have to prove that on every play, and you have to make sure that you are the reason the team won. I'm not saying that's what happens. I'm just saying it's what it looks like sometimes, right? Where you've got to separate and say, hey, it's my scheme, it's my play calling, it's my willingness to go against the grain, whatever it is that makes you feel like you have to prove how smart you are instead of just taking the low-hanging fruit, right? And just doing the simple thing that will get you the win. I mean, I don't know if that was the case here, but just so many strange decisions that, unfortunately, 49ers fans are going to have to unpack for quite a while here.
Well, you look at the broader view. McVay had a lot of questionable in-game decisions, and his offenses can be figured out later in the year to speak generally. Zach Taylor, who's from the McVay-Shanahan tree, running on first down over and over and over and getting nowhere. You're still doing it, like banging your head against the wall. These brilliant offensive minds, when you're the head coach, you're the CEO, you're the 30,000-foot guy, and if you're not, it's a problem.
All right, Doug, moving over to the AFC side this time. 2 games against the Bengals this season, Week 17 and then the AFC title game this weekend. Patrick Mahomes had terrible second halves in both of those games, allowed the Bengals to come back and win both of those games. I mean, the Bengals' solution here was simple in both cases, right? They came out of the locker room, they played a ton of different coverages, they dropped as many as 8 defenders, were willing to move things around and make adjustments, something Bill Belichick has also done effectively against Mahomes over the years.
Rush 3, drop it.
Right. I mean, obviously Mahomes is a great quarterback. The word blueprint is kind of a cheap way to go to say you can handle him, right? But I mean, he really struggled for against two deep coverages a lot of the season, going back to the Super Bowl last year. Is this going to haunt the Chiefs moving forward, or are they going to be able to counter this?
Well, the other thing about last year's Super Bowl, which you remember because you read for Bucks Wire, is that Todd Bowles didn't blitz. It was a very atypical game plan. And the Bengals in that Week 17 game came out and played a bunch of too high and basically dropped their safeties into the parking lot. This time, they did about equal too high and single high in the second half of what they did, and this is certainly on the Trey Hendrickson sack, and certainly on the Von Bell, Jesse Bates interception. I got to give Bates an assist for, bopping him on Tyreek Hill's hands. That was rush 3, drop 8, and one of those 8 droppers was a spy to keep Mahomes in the pocket. And you saw that in that red zone drive in the fourth quarter where he's running around like Bobby Brady trying to make something happen. And the thing about Mahomes, and this goes back to his Texas Tech days, when you get him out of sorts, when he's not comfortable with what he's seeing, he will start to throw hero balls. And the Bengals knew that, and they exploited it, and other teams have known that and exploited it. Now, the Chiefs have been great against too high, and this was true in the first half, because the Bengals run a lot of too high in the first half. You just throw everything underneath. But when you drop 8, that solves the problem of, well, who do we bracket, Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce? The answer is both, and make everything kind of squirrely underneath. That's for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and maybe Eric Bieniemy, if Eric Bieniemy doesn't get a head coaching job again, to figure out for the 2022 season. Because you know how the NFL is, Luke. He's going to see rush 3, drop 8 all next season.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as who can make adjustments and who can't, right? I mentioned the Super Bowl, but go back to really the last 3 quarters of the Bucs-Chiefs game from, I think it was week 12 last year, where the Chiefs got out to that huge lead in the first quarter, right? And then they didn't really score much the whole rest of the game. And the Bucs carried those adjustments over to the Super Bowl and obviously dominated them. They didn't score a touchdown. But the Chiefs didn't have a plan, right? In terms of, I'm a draft guy, right? So when I'm analyzing quarterback prospects, there's a huge mantra that I have where it's, when you can't do what you want, can you do what you have to?
Right.
And I think the Chiefs are being faced with the fact that when they can do what they want, they look really, really good. But when they're forced to do what they have to do to win games, to adjust on the fly, and they can't take their first read, if you will, they look really bad, and they haven't been able to figure that out. And so I think that is something they're going to have to figure out moving forward. Can they? I don't know if it's coaching, players, execution. It's probably all of the, a little bit of all of the above, right? But obviously they have some work to do, not just in terms of scheme, but in terms of being able to win games in different ways, because it looks like right now, if their first read's not there, they're in trouble.
3 simple words. It applies to both too high and 3 rushers. Run the ball.
Absolutely. It's as simple as that, Doug. We're going to move into a different category here with this game. The Bengals obviously finished the 2019 season 2-14, NFL's worst record. They get the number 1 overall pick, right? They take Joe Burrow with that pick. Now the Bengals have joined the 81 49ers and the 2003 Panthers as the only teams in the Super Bowl era to go from the league's worst record to a Super Bowl within 2 years, right? So, I mean, there's no question Burrow is the primary component to this turnaround, right? But are we still underestimating how good he really is?
I tend to think that we are. I hear a lot of people, well, Burrow's Burrow's not ascending to anything. Burrow's there. If we're not putting his name right up there with Mahomes, Rodgers, Justin Herbert, anyone, any other quarterback in the NFL, if we're not saying outright he's as good as anyone in the league, we're selling him short. One day after the Titans sacked Burrow 9 times in the divisional round, I was telling everyone who would listen that I didn't think the Chiefs would have a consistent answer for Burrow, and that's why the Bengals would win. And that's the most frightening thing to me about Burrow. It's that eerie calm. He was injured for the second half of last season. He's basically been in the NFL for a year and a half. And he did all that stuff at LSU, 60 touchdowns in the Natty and all that. But it's unless you sack him, you don't really have an answer. He's not specifically vulnerable to man or zone coverage, or too high or single high, or pressure, or the blitz, or whatever. He's a killer in the pocket. If he rolls out, watch out. That 3rd and 7 play where he got the first down to me, that was a game changer. It's tough to remember the last time we saw a guy like this who could just carve up the league no matter what the league does to him early in his career. Maybe Andrew Luck, when he didn't have a lot of talent around him his rookie season, and Bruce Arians took the whole 700-page playbook and shoved it down his throat, and Luck responded so brilliantly. But that's the last guy I can remember coming into the league and just setting it ablaze right from the start with, Jamar Chase and his receivers and Joe Mixon, but that line, ugh. The fact that he's doing it under constant duress is just incredible. He's as good as any quarterback in the NFL. The discussion of Burrow ascending, we are past that, or we need to be.
Right. I mean, he absolutely belongs in that conversation, and he did before this, but he absolutely can't be kept out now. I mean, again, going back to the draft, every year when we evaluate these quarterback prospects, one of the most important aspects, I know it's kind of ambiguous, but everybody's like talks about that it factor, right? He's got to have the it factor, and it's hard to define, but when you see it, you know it, right? You know what it looks like on the field, in the locker room, as a leader. Honestly, if I had to do an entire scouting report on Joe Burrow back then or now, it would just be that gif of him smoking the cigar, right? After the national championship game. That's his entire scouting report, because that's how he plays the game. That's how he operates, is that, like you said, that complete cool no matter what's going on, with that almost like, I know I'm going to get the job done here. So I think that's a huge reason he was the number 1 overall pick, right? You had, Chase Young that year, which could have been a great pick, obviously worthy as a elite pass rush. You had other quarterbacks in that class who are worthy of consideration, but that set him apart. And you could argue all day long the other quarterbacks have better physical traits. They do this one thing more, or this one thing better, and he may not have one elite trump card, right? The arm strength of Mahomes or the athleticism of somebody like Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. But he's more than good enough in all of those areas, and those intangibles set him apart. And I think because he's that complete package, and now he's proving he can get it done on the biggest stage. And again, not even with the best supporting cast. I know he's got those playmakers, like you said, but that offensive line has been terrible, and it hasn't mattered. That should scare every other team in this league.
Yeah, I think for me, when I'm evaluating quarterbacks, especially young quarterbacks, I want to see what happens. Like, okay, everyone has a plan until they get hit. The famous Mike Tyson quote. Well, what happens after you get hit? What happens after you throw a pick? And I go back to the Erie column. He just doesn't care. It's almost, dare I say it, Brady-esque. He just throws it out.
I mean, I was going to mention it. It felt like hyperbole, right? I didn't
want
to
I think we're there, man. We're there.
But that's what it felt like. And again, to contrast that with what happened with the Chiefs, when that entire segment we just did, when they get punched in the mouth, when they have to adjust, they have failed against the Bengals directly. And really the first half of this season, coming off of that Super Bowl, they don't have a plan when they get punched in the mouth. And I think that was a huge difference in both of those games against the Bengals.
Yep. And they're in good shape for a long time, as long as Burrow stays healthy, which, draft's coming up, guys. Get about 10 offensive linemen and,
prosper.
Let's fix that.
There it is. Now we'll close out. We're going to, with some quarterback talk still, we're going to go back to the NFC. The Rams punched their ticket to the Super Bowl exactly 1 year to the day after they traded 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford from the Detroit Lions. Nobody questions the wisdom of that decision now, right? Especially if the Rams go on to win this game. At the same time, 49ers were prepared to ride or die with Jimmy Garoppolo, though they were also, preparing to move past him at some point when they traded up for Trey Lance, right? So now that the Jimmy G era appears to be over in San Francisco, what do we think Garoppolo can be somewhere else, right? What is his ceiling as an NFL quarterback?
Yeah, excellent pronunciation of Detroit, the MC5. We're proud of you, Luke. Garoppolo, I mean, honestly, average out of Kyle Shanahan's system, average starter at best. He could be a backup in a couple years. When Jimmy Garoppolo finds himself with a new team, he had better hope that his new team has a bright offensive coordinator who's great at scheming things open. Because with a very few exceptions, there are two things that happen with footballs that leave his hands. It's either schemed wide open or it's a second or two late. And that's where you get the problems with middle of the field coverage and the cemetery balls he throws to receivers. And just these, really inexplicable incompletions over the middle where guys are wide open and they're not.
The first drive, Doug. The first drive. Kittle wide open over the middle and he just airmails it.
And he doesn't see it. He doesn't anticipate it. That thing doesn't snap out. We've been talking about all these great quarterbacks. He just doesn't have that. And it's, late switching coverages, he doesn't pick it up. Any quarterback with these obvious fatal flaws, it's always going to be the kind of quarterback you win with at best and you win in spite of at worst. We've rarely seen Garoppolo put his team on his back, if ever. And that's with the league's best offensive designer. What is he going to do anywhere else? I think, to me, Garoppolo could be kind of where Jared Goff is now, which is, maybe we can get someone better. Like now.
I tell you what, I am going to be disappointed if we don't get an Instagram post from Jeff Garcia specifically dedicated to our comments on Jimmy Garoppolo today. I'm going to be really sad.
Hi, Nina.
But I mean, honestly, you said it. If Jimmy G is your quarterback, you'd better have everything else the 49ers have, and that might not still be enough, right? And we just saw why it wasn't. You got to have great skill position players around him, even rare ones like Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. You better have a stellar defense with a great coordinator in DeMeco Ryans and playmakers on that defense like Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, who can make plays, solid play calling, scheme, coaching, all of that stuff. And we've seen over the last few years that maybe even that is not enough to get you to the top of the mountain. They've gotten close a couple times now. But when you get to the point in the postseason when you're playing these superstar quarterbacks who can do those things every single week, you know, he beat Dak Prescott, who didn't have a great game. He beat Aaron Rodgers, who didn't have a great game. Eventually, that bill comes due, right? You can't keep doing that when the other team has a quarterback who can put them on their back, who can take the team to another level. And I think that's what we saw against Matthew Stafford. That illustrated that gap between those two guys, and it was painfully obvious. I think if I had to take my chances with a quarterback, give me a rookie. Give me somebody on a rookie deal who's at least got some potential. With Jimmy, we know what he is at this point, and I think the proof is there that even with the best supporting cast, that's never going to be enough at this position.
You go back to Super Bowl 54 against the Chiefs. Deebo Samuel was the MVP of the first half. He ripped the Chiefs defense to shreds. That San Francisco defense overall, especially the secondary, was better then than it was now. And then you have Jimmy G overthrowing Emmanuel Sanders in the second half when they had to rely on him to do it. I mean, you can't have that from a quarterback. You can't win. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't work at all, Doug, but that'll do it for us today. Another episode of 4 Down Territory in the books. Thanks again for joining us. For Doug Farrar, I'm Luke Easterling, and we'll see you next week.